will note that immediately following this class, your final will be available on Canvas. As you know, I think we've explained to you, your final is a matter of just telling us which of the speakers you would have back, what you liked, what you gained from it, and you can take that as soon as about 12:30 today, maybe 1 o'clock before it gets on. So you take that final. Other than that, you're ready for the class. Oh, there's also, if you'll fill out nicely, I'd like you to do the student review of your professor. If you have bad remarks, you don't need to fill it out, and I'll still give you the 2 points. I'm obviously teasing. We'd love you to fill that out as well. So just like you give feedback to your speakers, feedback to your professor as well is appreciated. It's my privilege to introduce a man I've known of for years, but only known for about 6 or 8 months. Ron Smart is the CEO and chairman of the board of One Door Corporation, the largest seller of accordion doors in the world. And he's going to tell you they do a lot more than I thought before I visited your plant with you 6 or 8 months ago. Mr. Smart began his career at One Door while attending another university north of here as a marketing major, eventually taking over as president of the company at the age of 24. So many of you are older than him when he took over as the president. In 2007, he was a recipient of the Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year Regional Award. Mr. Smart, here's his real claim to fame, served as the mission president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Oregon-Eugene mission. And for those of you who are aware, that's where I had the opportunity to serve as mission president 9 years after him. He was there from July of '99 to July of 2002. He and his wife Jody reside in Sandy and are the parents of 2 children, Stephanie and Scott. Scott's here with us. He's in the booth earning his lunch, I think, in the back, making sure the thing goes off without a hitch. And he and his sister Stephanie are their 2 children. They have 7 grandchildren. Mr. Smart serves on a number of corporate and philanthropic boards, none of which are more important than the National Advisory Board here at the Woodbury School of Business, chaired by Amy Reese Anderson, and we're grateful to recently welcome him in as a member of that board. He enjoys golf, reading, fishing, and most other sports, and from what I just hear, a fair bit of traveling. Would you please join me in inviting Ron Smart to the stage?
Thanks, Tom. I assume my mic's, okay, now I know it's working. Listen, all of you, I know with finals week, the fact that you're here, and I guess if I want to really get the good marks, I ought to just say, take off, and then you can give me the great marks. But I have committed that I'm going to talk a little bit about our company. You've probably not heard too much about One Door because we do not do any residential advertising. We don't do any residential work. But we're in every continent on the face of the earth except the Antarctic. I'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. But what I'd like to do, so you just understand us a little more, I'm going to show you a quick clip just of some installation, but of the businesses that we're in. And so with that in mind, let's go ahead and go straight to that video clip, and then I'll stand up and tell you a little bit about that and how we've made it through 60 years of business.
Imagine being able to solve both your fire and security needs with a virtually invisible door. One Door Corporation has worked hand in hand with world-renowned architects to protect these magnificent projects around the globe. Part of our legacy is listening to the needs of owners and architects in designing these amazing structures, while still meeting stringent fire codes and solving security needs. Since 1962, One Doors have been used in hundreds of thousands of product installations worldwide. Needing no floor trap, One Doors can achieve heights over 4 stories high and widths as long as a football field. This flexibility allows architects the creativity to design buildings never thought possible. Whether you find us protecting the new Sandy Hook Elementary or the hundreds of doors that protect the Pentagon, our mission is to continue to design, manufacture, and install leading-edge products that dramatically improve life safety, while simultaneously providing you with unlimited design flexibility. The major corporations and businesses of the world achieve success because of progressive management, spending money wisely, perseverance, timing, and great decision-making. Is it any wonder that the most successful businesses on the planet are not only using One Doors repeatedly in their headquarters, but also in their retail outlets and storefronts? These businesses know a good deal when they see it, and that's why One Doors are found in the largest companies in the world. From the tens of thousands of One Doors in Walmart stores, to the numerous landmark structures that so many great businesses are headquartered in, the list of all the well-known companies that use One Door to enhance their buildings would take far too long to recognize here. However, here's just a small sampling of some of these incredible companies. Apple, Netflix, Comcast, Samsung, Verizon, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Hewlett-Packard, Delta Airlines, Boeing, Exxon, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, General Motors, Goodyear, Coca-Cola, Tyson, Starbucks, Walgreens, Nu Skin, Rolex, Cabela's, Anheuser-Busch, Costco, IKEA, Nike, Sony, Disney Studios, Fox, HBO, American Express, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Citicorp, Charles Schwab, Geico, Ernst Young, Nationwide, Prudential, Transamerica, Aflac, Deloitte & Touche, Willis Tower. Since One Door's humble beginnings in 1962, their exceptional construction and durability have led to installations across the United States, from the West Coast to the East Coast, up into Canada, and down into the Gulf of Mexico, with the thousands of applications represented by these flashing lights. By the early 80s and into the late 90s, One Door continued to prove its flexibility to adapt to the strict fire code requirements, expanding its popularity with design professionals and building owners, further extending its applications into South America, Europe, Africa, New Zealand, and the Philippines. By the turn of the century, One Door had officially become an internationally distributed product, with hundreds of thousands of installations across the globe, with footprints in every major country, including Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia. One Door continues to innovate with high speed and security applications, doors that can achieve heights over 35 feet, widths the length of a football field, and currently has hundreds of patents worldwide. With installations in high-use areas working perfectly for over 60 years, One Door continues to prove the outstanding quality of each door they produce. Eero Saarinen rightly observed, the purpose of architecture is to shelter and enhance man's life on Earth, and to fulfill his belief in the nobility of his existence. At One Door, we remain committed to the objective of enhancing man's life on Earth, by allowing architects to be creative in their building designs while still meeting stringent building and fire codes. In fulfilling that mission, we hope you have seen that what truly makes us wonderful is not what you see, but what you don't see.
Now, so I just listed some of the businesses that we're in, and I could do the same thing with hospitals. I could do the same, I mean, the list, and Tom's been down and seen our operation, but we can literally, with pretty much every type of commercial building, whether it be museums, theaters, whatever, that we can do it. I'm going to start first with just talking about a little bit about some government buildings. We're in the Eisenhower building, where the vice president houses has his offices. We're in the data center that's just at the point of the mountain, where all the computers for the U.S., so many of the computers are stored and kept. The Pentagon's a big deal to us, and most of you were too young to remember this, but on 9/11, 2001, you've heard about it if you weren't alive at that time, but a jet with 88 passengers came screaming into the Pentagon and literally just smashed right into it. Luckily, it was in an area where we had doors, and we only had 38 doors at the time in the Pentagon, but it hit right where our doors were. And so the plane hit two of our doors, and we can't stop a plane yet. We're working on that. But anyway, it went right through those doors. But all the other doors, even though all the electricity went out to the Pentagon, all our doors have backup power supplies. What they do, just so you know, is that they'll automatically close when a fire starts. They have fire exit hardware that you hit. And because we've proven that we can get not only, well, we can get disabled people through our door far faster, but then it proved we could get everybody through our doors faster than swinging doors. We're approved in every application and without regard to occupant load, except what's called H applications, which are chemical type things. We don't want to be involved in that. And so every other application, wherever swinging door is approved, we're approved. But we give so many advantages. But I just want to mention on the Pentagon, because I was actually, the reason Tom looks so young, I was called as a mission president when I was 43 years old, and we served from 1999 to 2002. And Tom came after that, but he still looks a lot younger than I am, and I'm extremely jealous. But he's an amazing man. You have such amazing people down here, and I hope you know how fortunate you are to be a part of this incredible business school. And I just need to say, with what the Kellers have just done, with what the governor's doing, the governor's a dear friend of mine. I love him dearly. I think not only is he a great governor, but he's just a great person. But with what he's doing down here, this is one of the greatest universities on the face of the earth. And so I hope you know how great that is. But anyway, I couldn't fly and leave the mission. But our installers, when they went to look at the doors, a 3-star Marine general came up to him and said, "You need to know that this door saved my life." And he said, "Let me tell you what happened. When the plane hit, the whole building just shook." And he said, "I didn't know what it was, but I jumped up, I ran out into the hallway, and this fireball was coming directly at me." He says, "There's nothing I could do." So he said, "I just kissed my backside goodbye." He did use the official Marine terminology. I'll let you figure that out. Anyway, so he said, I'm there knowing I'm going to die this terrible death of fire. And he said, all of a sudden, I was so fixated on the fireball that I didn't see this door coming across. And the timing was impeccable. It closed, and I watched it take the whole blast of this fireball. And he wanted to know how much blast testing we had done. But he said, I watched it take this blast, and not only did I not die this terrible death of fire, I didn't even feel any heat. And I and everybody else in there, we were all able to get out safely. In fact, Engineering Magazine later said that ours and 3 other products saved 2,000 military lives that day. Now that may not excite you, but that excites me. I'm so, yeah, the fact that we could do that and the doors could seal off, but our engineers, as they went out after, literally on the one side where the fires all blew up from the jet, the walls, the ceiling were so covered with, they were all black with soot, and you could write your name. It was so thick in it. On the other side of our doors, the ceiling tiles, the walls were as pristine as the day they went in. That's why the Pentagon was actually able to go in business the very next day. Now, we only had 38 doors at that time. Now we have over 150 doors because of how well they operated. So I just wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about that story. But again, we're in so many government buildings. We could list the list like we did the businesses. Airports. We're in pretty much every airport from LAX to LaGuardia to O'Hare. The list would go on and on. But because of the uniqueness of what we're able to do, and I'll show you a little of the Tampa airport in just a little bit, but we're in, again, like you say, the same thing with the airports. We've listed businesses. I'm going to go past this. Hotels. This is actually the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. If you've seen Crazy Rich Asians, the movie, that's the hotel they focus on. $8 billion project. We have millions of dollars of doors in there, and some really unique ones where they've used this very cleverly. And but Again, we're in thousands of Marriotts, we're in all kinds of hotels. In fact, you name, whether it be Hyatt Regency or Embassy Suites or anything, we're in those hotels, and so we're pretty proud of that. We're also in cultural centers. This is the King Abdul Aziz Cultural Center in Saudi Arabia. But we're not only in, like I say, those unique buildings, we're also in theaters, whether it be movie theaters. If you go to Jordan Commons, you walk under our doors every day. In fact, I'm willing to say you walk under our doors on a regular basis. You just don't know you're walking under them. But we're also, I just saw Lyle Beecher come in. He's one of the, Beecher Walker Architects is literally one of the best architects we've ever dealt with, and we deal with architects around the world. Lyle Beecher knows how to use our product. I'm just going to use one example of it. How many have been to Hale Center Theater? Most all of you. He's the genius behind Hale Center Theaters. But he used our doors in such a unique way because they have what's called, they're naming them now, but the Jewel Box Theater, and then they had the main theater. And Lyle knew that these theaters have to have staging areas where they can bring large props in, and so they have tall doors of ours that come in. And Lyle, you can correct me at any time if I say something wrong. But what he wanted to do is save them money and allow them to use one staging area that could go to both theaters. So we had to, again, and we did this, but not only provide fire protection, but the sound protection necessary so you couldn't hear the noises from one theater to another. And I guarantee you can't. I'm a season ticket holder, I sit on the board, but the fact is that Lyle cleverly used that and saved the theater a great deal of money. He also knew that in parking garages, you have to have the parking garage separated by fire-rated partitions or fire-rated doors. But if you do that, again, it takes away the ambience of when people come out of the parking garage and then see the beautiful lobby areas that they created, Lyle and his team created. So what they've done is they've taken our door. You don't see them. You walk right past them. You would have never known they're there if I hadn't told you, but maybe you want to look the next time you go through the parking garage and see what he's done. But you have that full theater experience. I wasn't going to talk about it until I saw Lyle walk in. Did I miss anything there? I mean, you've used them in so many nursing homes and other kinds of things. He just understands the ability to use those doors. We're in pretty much every major stadium in the world. This is Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta where the Super Bowl was held. They've really used the doors cleverly in there, but you saw the Gillette Stadium. We're in pretty much most baseball stadiums. We're in most of the basketball arenas. We're in most of the college venues. We are in LaVelle Edwards Stadium. We are in the University of Utah's main stadium. And I'll talk about schools in a minute, but we do have doors on UVU campus. You just haven't seen them probably. Casinos around the world. This is Studio City. It's in Macau. And that ride goes around the figure eight and actually goes and you go down and then down the whole thing. It's amazing what they do and the money they spend on these casinos. They get it from somewhere, so remember when you're gambling, you're probably not good odds there, but they've used, again, we have so many doors in not only a lot of casinos in Macau and across the country, but just where you see in Las Vegas, hopefully this will go. If you look down the strip, we're in every one of those casinos. I don't think there's any we're not in. I mean, there may be one or two. But the fact is that they use our doors so much because they're themed casinos, and we try to make the architect realize that no longer do they have to build their doors around 4-foot wide swinging doors, but now what they can do is literally build their buildings the way they want it, and we come in and design the fire protection for them and help them to design the doors. But that's why we're in pretty much every casino. Now I want to move to schools. We're in tens of thousands of K through 12 schools. We're in over 1,600 universities. But the fact of the matter is that unlike with swinging doors that, again, look like this, with our product, gives the same fire protection, but it looks like that. And I'm going to move this fast because I don't have a lot of time. Again, this is what the architect was originally thinking. This is photoshopped in. But when he learned about our doors, this is what he ended up with. Okay, because with the glazing for less money, by the way. Same thing here. You have these big brick pillars, but you know where most kids end up running into each other is not the big brick pillars, but at these mullions that are coming across there. So they're hurrying to their lockers, they're in a hurry. They say most school fights start because of run-ins going through that. When our door's there, you can see the difference. The other thing is because we can go full height of ceiling, it just opens it up. So it gives the ability to do and fulfill all the fire codes, but gives the ability to owners to do some really unique things. This is the Tampa airport. This is what they were thinking of doing. This is what they ended up doing because we have doors that will come across and give them the full fire protection. So it allows now the travelers to see what gates they're going to, what escalators they need to go down. Anyway, so I talked about this, and I'm going to, because we're on every continent. The only continent we're not on is the Antarctic, and probably the closest we're going to get is we are here at the SeaWorld Antarctic Adventure, Penguin Adventure. So I just wanted you to know that's probably as close. So we took this picture because our first plant, when we first got started, is here. But I wish I could tell you we had this side. It's just from that yellow pole over. Now our plant facility is all the buildings you see back to the Pepsi building. We run them all. We put billions of dollars through that plant. Now I want to tell you kind of how and some of the things I think are important if you're going to really be successful in business, in anything. And I hope some of you, I assume most of you are probably majoring in business. There's a lot of ways to make money in business. And so, yeah, we'll talk about it here. But I want to first give you a couple strategies. The first one is you need to have integrity. You don't stay in business 60 years if you don't have integrity with your vendors, with your customers, and everybody. But the biggest hero in my life was my dad, and he started the company. Again, he got cancer. I had to take it over at the age of 24, but he was the most, I don't think there was a man with more integrity. I'm just going to tell you kind of what happened with him, but he had a dear individual that he loved greatly that was actually part of the family. But this individual had gotten some investors to get in on a deal with him, and my dad ran into one of those investors down in Salt Lake. He didn't know anything about it, and the investor said, hey, this person really, I feel, was dishonest with us. And my dad knew this guy. He says, I can't even imagine he was dishonest. So he went to the guy that did this. I don't want to use names, but he went to the individual and did this, and he said, what happened here? And he said, well, I may have made a couple promises that I got over my skis on that I thought were going to take place that I hadn't actually pulled together yet. It didn't pull together, and they did lose their money. It bothered my dad so much. He went to my mom and said, we need to pay these people back, because that's how important his family name meant. So my mom said, well, yeah, great. How do we do that? They took a second mortgage. Who does this? They took a second mortgage out on their home so they could pay these individuals back. Okay, I just want to give you that background story. Then later, my dad was working for the government at that time. He was in his 30s when this happened. But when the governor changed, they moved everything from one party to the other party, and he lost his job along with everybody else that was in that same party. And so he's 40 years old. He doesn't know what to do. He started selling actually storm windows door to door. And then he started a distributorship where handled a folding door called Splendor. And Splendor actually made a really good product, but it was just a sight barrier, but it was very durable. And he got it into the LDS church market and started to sell it there. And he became their number one salesperson, their number one dealer. Anyway, as things happen in business, Splendor had a major fire. And what took place, it put them in such financial binds, they were sold to another company who's still in business today, so I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to down any company. But that company started to cheapen the door. I mean, didn't do it the same way. And so my dad, being the kind of guy he was, and he's a pretty unique guy, you got to admit, doing what I just told you, but he wouldn't sell something he didn't completely believe in. And I remember my mom saying the greatest day of her life was when they paid off that second mortgage that first time. But anyway, he comes back to her and he says, they're not going to do this. They're not going to change the door. I feel like I promised the door will do this. I don't feel like it will anymore. And he said, we're going to have to start making our own doors, if nothing else, to fulfill the orders. And so my mom said, okay. And they took another mortgage out on their house. But they went to the banker, and the banker says, Jay, that was his name, I don't think this is going to be enough. I don't think that what we've got here, but I like you, I'm going to take it to the board anyway. So he took it to the board, and the board essentially looked at it, and the banker, as he told this back to my dad, said it was going down in flames because there just wasn't enough assets to, but banks would work with you a little better than now. I'm telling you, you better have the assets to back it up. But anyway, to make the long story short, but all of a sudden one of the board members said, well, wait a second. Is this the same Jay Smart that lives in Halladay, Utah and worked for the government? And the banker said, yeah, no, it's the same guy. So I got to tell you a story about him. He says, I invested in a not even a business, but I invested in an idea that this individual had, that Jay, I know, was very close with. And anyway, I know Jay had nothing to do with it, but the next thing I know, when it didn't go, we got a check from Jay and his wife basically saying sorry that didn't work out. And he said, I would trust this guy with my life. The whole thing turned around. And because of that, one door got started. And if that guy hadn't, I mean, yeah, it was fortunate. It was whatever you want to call it, coincidental, lucky, anything else. But integrity is a huge thing. I can't tell you enough how important it is, just for you to feel good about what you do. Second, you need to be willing to take risks. And if you're going to keep a business going, and I've got to really move because I'm not going to have a lot of time to tell you, but I just need to point out my dear wife here, because there's been several times through these 60 years that there's been recession periods, construction recessions, and all of a sudden contractors aren't paying you the money that you're supposed to get. And you've got to keep that same integrity with your vendors. And so I've had to go to my wife and say, honey, we're well enough off that we could literally walk away from this, but if we're going to keep this going, we've got to put everything we own on the line. And thank heavens for my dear wife. She says, I'll support you in whatever you decide. So 2 or 3 times we've had to put everything, not just our home, but everything we own on the line as collateral to the bank, so I wouldn't have to train new salespeople or retrain installers. But you're going to have to take risks. If you're not willing to take risks, don't get into business for yourself. Still a lot of ways to make money, but don't do it to yourself. Know your weaknesses. None of us are perfect, and so you really want to know what your weaknesses are, and then hire people to help you to cover those weaknesses. Now be careful with some consultants, because it's easy to spend other people's money, and the reason a lot of them are consultants, there's good consultants, but there's also those that the reason they're consultants is because they couldn't really do it themselves. And so you've got to just be careful on who, but hire people that are strong. And then you've got to get to know those people. And you need to know their weaknesses and their strengths and all about them. Because, again, how I approach, for example, my CFO would be completely different of how I approach my general manager. They're two different individuals. It's like the football coach that says, to get the best out of one kid, I've got to build him up all the time. To get the best out of another, I might have to knock him down a little. Now, I don't believe in ever knocking anybody down. But you might have to ride him a little harder. Or you might have to approach him different. Because all of us are different. But you've got to know your people and how to get the best out of them. And I wish I could talk more about some of these. Then you've got to lead by example. Your words are meaningless. It's your example. So when things get tough, my managers, all of them, by the way, 40 years or more that have been with me, even my personal assistant, secretary, has been with me for 41 years. I asked her if I could tell you this. She's 79 years old, and she doesn't look it. She's amazing. But I don't know it's going to be hard to lose her. She's still sharp as a tack. But I still write my own texts and all the things. But letter writing is becoming a thing of the past. But I still send letters. And I can bring her in, and she can take shorthand as fast as I can talk. And then the letters are on my desk in 10 minutes. I mean, she's amazing, and I'm so grateful for her. But again, they know that in hard times, I'm going to take the cut in salary, which I've done. In good time, not them, but in good times, they know I'm going to share the wealth, and I've tried to do it. All my managers, by the way, are multimillionaires, and they told me I could tell you that. But you don't have to own the business to make a lot of money. You can do that. Then you have to allow people to manage. You have to allow them to make some mistakes now and then. And so I'm going to have to really close this fast. But the reality is, if you talk to my managers, they wouldn't tell you it's because of the money they've stayed this long. They would tell you that it's because, one, I've let them manage, and sometimes it's hard when you do something different, but there's more than one way to do things, and a lot of times their ideas were better than the way I would have probably done it, but I don't want 1,000 me's. I want people to be different and bring new things to the table and bring open. A good manager to me is someone who listens to their people and then gives them credit for that, and that's a big deal. Last but not least, and if you're going to learn anything from me today, except this one point, is enjoy what you do. Okay, I have traveled the world, and I've seen a lot of rich people that are so miserable that you wouldn't believe it. If you think money is going to be the answer to all your woes, and don't get me wrong, I want money as much as the next guy. I'm going to work hard. We all want money, and if we use it right, it's a wonderful thing. But the fact of the matter, said that, but the reality is that if you're not enjoying what you do, if you don't enjoy coming to work every day, it's like I said to my secretary, I says, "Why, 79, you're still with me?" And she says, "I love coming to work." I talk to the managers. They enjoy coming to work. They look forward to it. So if you're in an accounting class and you hate accounting, still listen, because you need to know how to read P&Ls and balance sheets and cash flow and EBITDA and all the things that you need to know. But don't be an accountant, because you're not going to be happy. If you love accounting, there's places you can make a lot of money in accounting. Believe me, there are a lot of places that you can make money. But the same thing in everything. Look at what you like to do and then make that decision of where you want to go and what you want to be. So I've gone kind of past. If I'm going to answer questions, and I'm glad to answer any questions that any of you have, let me say this right up front, though. Thank you for letting me come. I mean, again, like I say, you're right before finals, and most of you, 75% of you, have already gotten your credit for the class, but you still showed up. That tells me a lot. And so my son will be leaving his cards at the end. We hire people all the time if you're interested. But more importantly is just thank you for taking the time when I know you'd rather be studying probably for exams. But if you'll just follow these, there's many others I could bring, but these basic steps, I can tell you, not only will your business experience be better, your life's going to be better. So with that, I'll end and take questions. Thanks very much, by the way. So any questions? Or you're okay, right there.
What are some of the next big steps for One Door?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Thank you for asking that. We're always in the process of innovating and coming up, but we've designed a new door, and my son, who's president now of the company, he got his degree in mechanical engineering, went back and worked for Pratt & Whitney, came back to BYU, got his master's degree in mechanical engineering, but he worked for ATK. And he knew that they had trouble with, they had lost several rockets because the nose cone design was bad. Knowing that, so Scott used his master's thesis to design a computer program that no matter how the rocket changed, the nose cone would automatically change so it would fly at the exact trajectories they needed through any atmosphere. Well, when ATK, when Morton Thiokol, you may know it by ATK, got it, they were gobsmacked. They were knocked over. And the engineer said, what it used to take us 7 months to do, now we can do in 10 minutes. We've tried everything to make it fail, and it won't fail. Who in the world did this? And so I wasn't sure, because I let Scott, again, I didn't tell him what I wanted him to do. I wanted him to be happy. He's the one that wanted to go into engineering. But he went there, and the bad thing is I know a lot of companies, because I heard back from BYU, I sit on the athletic board there and things, but I'm becoming a Wolverine. But the fact of the matter is that I knew all these companies wanted him. But he's come up with a new door for us that stacks in half the space, that's high speed, that we can close off a school in less than 5 seconds if a shooter comes in. And people can still egress out, but it won't let a shooter go. We've already started to put them into a number of elementaries. You saw Sandy Hook, who had the problem. They put them into their new school. I mean, we've just got a lot going. And so we're moving heavily to the security market, away from, not away from fire, we still do all the fire doors and things, but security is a big deal now because the world changes. Thank you for that question. Sorry about the long answer. Okay, I've got a few more minutes. Thank you.
Ron, I know you're personally...
Oh my gosh, Jerry. Hey, I want you to kind of tell the story you told me, because I mentioned with Scott. But do you remember that? Because you worked right with the administration. Oh, you don't?
I will tell you the story about Ron, though. Ron is personally, the reason he's successful, he personally touches everybody's lives. When he lived in our neighborhood, he went around to everybody's birthday, every year. You knew that he would be at your door. Every missionary that he's ever had contact with, he writes personal letters to on their birthday every year. That's why he is successful.
Well, thank you.
Because he cares about people.
That means a lot, and you're so nice. And the experience that I wanted you to kind of, because you came to me at one time, because you were working at BYU, and you said that all the engineering professors wanted to know where Scott landed. Because, do you remember that? Because, yeah, of what they did. BYU made a lot on him, but that's a different story. He didn't get anything of it. Any other questions? Thank you so much. I didn't see you there. I'm glad you... Okay, I'm 1 minute. If there's any other...
And would you repeat the question for the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. I will be glad to repeat the question. Go ahead. That is a great question. She's asking essentially if there's applications that we can add to the door to really monitor what the door's done, what it's doing. And I think, is that what we're talking about? And we do, yeah. And so we can actually monitor, or the school, the building can monitor exactly. We can hook up to cameras. There's even now, if a shot's fired and it hears it, we can hook up to building systems that will automatically shut the door. And now they've just come out with an infrared camera that if a gun gets snuck in, I think it can automatically shut the doors, but it monitors all of it and can be controlled from the police department, from wherever, that they can have access and control that, and we could actually control it from our plant. We just got too many doors to follow. Okay, so when the door shuts, it's going to lock, and there's no way you can break through. Whether you have crowbars, sledgehammers, there's just no way to break through the door. Now, they can make it so on non-egress paths, but only one side will have the panel that will allow the door to open. And so at that point, the teachers are trying to take over and to get the students into their classrooms, but we keep the shooter from being able to get to the classrooms. Unlike Marjorie Stoneman, and I didn't repeat the question, but he says, how do you keep people from getting in and still allow them to get out? Well, so from the one side, they can and egress when the teachers decide, or they can use card readers, fingerprint, or whatever to do that. But a shooter, they can't. And so actually, we put them in at Rose Springs Elementary in Tooele, and I'll end with this. But that the police came in because they heard it's one of the safest schools in the world, and the governor's task force put together a task force that came down and visited us. And I just need to kind of tell you, the police turned to the fire marshal, Coy Porter, who's the state fire marshal. He says, so these are approved in every place? And Coy Porter turned to him and said, all I know is I hope they're in my grandkids' school. He says, they're absolutely approved. But so anyway, at Rose Springs, after the doors were all in, the police came down and they had an expert that knew all about shooting and gun shooting. They didn't bring a gun in, but they had him with a camera. And so they brought him in and they cheated, because what they did with the swinging doors is they put some stuff in between so the swinging doors in the front didn't latch. And so as they were talking to the individual, this guy was able to sneak in, actually got past our first door and was in the kind of the library area, and they said, oh, by the way, the shots have just been fired, what are you going to do? They immediately put the school in lockdown, and the guy came back out and he said, I could have maybe shot 1 or 2 administrating people. I couldn't have gotten to any of the kids. He said, I'm knocked over by this. And so it was really a unique thing, and they had tried it in other schools. They weren't able to lock it down even close to what we were able to do. So it's a pretty fun thing. We're excited about it. We're excited that the leadership coming up, it's so amazing, as all of you. And so just thank you so much for letting me come. Thanks.